Hello guys, so let's quickly take a look at breathing mechanism. All right, so before we talk about breathing mechanism in proper, we need to look at the muscles and other structures involved in the process. All right, so this is a structure of a very simple lungs. All right, a simple structure of the lungs. Now, we have few muscles here that play vital role, and one of them is this. This is called the diaphragm. The diaphragm. Diaphragm. Now, it's a very important muscle because one of its major function is that it separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. All right, so you just have a sheet of muscle just like this. It assumes a dome shape when you are relaxed, and when you breathe in or you inhale, it flattens. All right, it contracts and flattens. And I'm going to talk about that very soon. All right. So we also have another type of muscle which we call the intercostal muscles. Now the intercostal muscles, there are two. We have the external intercostal muscles and the internal intercostal muscles. Now the external intercostal muscles line the outside part, okay, while the internal, like the name implies, lines that of the inside. Now these are ribs. So you know the ribs protects the lungs and the heart and other organs there. So these are the ribs. Now let's go into the mechanism of breathing proper now. All right. So let's start from inhalation. The first thing that happens in inhalation is that the thoracic region increases in size, in volume. Okay. So that increase in volume, something happens. When the volume increases, the pressure drops. Okay. So the first thing you have is increase in volume, in volume or size of the thoracic cavity now. All right. So when this happens, the next thing that happens is that the pressure drops or the pressure is lowered. Okay. So you know when the volume of a particular probably a container is increased, the pressure inside reduces. All right. So that's what happens. And the next thing that happens is that the diaphragm, which is a muscular sheet, it contracts and flattens. It contracts and flattens. So diaphragm contracts and flatten. All right. So when this happens, the the volume inside the chest is increased. Okay. So that's the third thing that happens. And the next thing that happens after the contraction and flattening of the diaphragm is that the sternum, no, before the sternum, the intercostal muscles. Now this time it is the external intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscle also contracts. So intercostal contracts. Intercostal contracts. Now, after the contraction of the intercostal muscle, the next thing that happens is that the sternum moves outward. Okay, so the sternum moves forward. So you can say outward. All right. So when the sternum moves forward, the next thing that happens is that the rib cage now, the rib cage moves upwards and outwards. All right. So the rib cage moves upwards and forward. All right. Now, talking about exhalation mechanism now. Exhalation is just the opposite of inhalation. All right. So the first thing you'd have is, since there is an increase in volume or size of the thoracic cavity in inhalation. In exhalation, there will be a decrease in the volume of thoracic cavity. All right. So the first thing we are having here is decrease in volume of thoracic cavity. All right. Now, when this happens, the next thing that follows is the pressure decreasing, the pressure increasing rather, not decreasing, because it decreased in inhalation. So the pressure increase. Okay. So when you have the volume of the chest decreased, you have the pressure increase. Okay, that's what happens, and that happens at almost the same time. And the next thing that follows is that the diaphragm, now, which is this muscle, the diaphragm assumes a dome shape. Okay, so it relaxes and assumes a dome shape. So diaphragm relax and assume a dome shape. All right. Now, when this happens, the next thing that happens is that the intercostal muscles contract again. Now, this time it is not the external intercostal muscles, it is now the internal intercostal muscles. The internal intercostal muscles, they contract. So intercostals contracts. All right. So after the contraction of the intercostal muscles, the next thing that happens is that the sternum moves backwards. The sternum moves backward, moves backwards. All right. Now, and finally, the rib, because it moved up and forward in inhalation, during exhalation, is going to move down and backwards. Okay, so ribs move down and backwards. All right, so this is just an overview of the mechanism that happens when you breathe in and breathe out. All right, now, just a quick run through now. Whenever the diaphragm flattens, what happens is that it increases the volume of the chest region. All right. Now, that is because when the diaphragm flattens, since the lung is elastic in nature, it just drags the lungs and increases the size. Okay. So just like the lungs expanding. So when that expansion happens, the diaphragm flattens. Okay. It contracts and flattens, which is inhalation. Okay. So when the diaphragm relaxes and assumes the dome shape, the pressure inside increases because the volume is decreased. That is exhalation. All right. So this is just an overview of how inhalation and exhalation happens in the body. So thank you and see you in my next video.